Is Cersei a secret Targaryen? It's been a fan theory for quite some time, and there's actually quite a lot of evidence. Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. On this channel we cover A Song of Ice and Fire in full, as well as the wider world of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon and Dunk and Egg. Oh, and The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher too. If that sounds good, there's a subscribe button in the bottom right of your screen. I've several times theorised on this channel that Tyrion might be a secret Targaryen. There's various bits of evidence both for and against that. But if Tyrion might be the Mad King's bastard child, might Cersei and Jaime be too? Well, all this stems from the fact that Aerys II, the Mad King, had a history of being inappropriate with Tywin Lannister's wife Joanna. There were lewd comments, eyewitness accounts of him taking liberties at the bedding ceremony, rumours of an affair, and Joanna was even expelled from court soon afterwards by Rhaella, Aerys' wife, which is what she did with the king's various mistresses. Nevertheless, Joanna was still at court sometimes. We're told she was there seldom, but not never, and therefore in close proximity to the king, so it's possible. George R. R. Martin makes it clear in The World of Ice and Fire that the playing down of the rumours we see there are from Grand Maester Pycelle, who is, as we know, a bit of a Tywin fanboy, so we can't really take his word on it. So in purely practical terms, it's at least possible. And it's noticeable that, although Tyrion was given a traditional-sounding Lannister name, just in the couple of generations above Tyrion you get Tywin, Tyget, Tytos, Tybolt, Tyon. You get the idea, but no Cersei or Jaime anywhere. But are there clues in the way George R. R. Martin wrote Cersei's character that hint that it's actually true? Well, she's first introduced as a POV character in A Feast for Crows, and these are literally the first words we hear from her perspective. She dreamt she sat on the Iron Throne, high above them all. The barbs and blades of the Iron Throne bit into her flesh. That's quite an image, and a clear echo of Aerys II, who became known not just as the Mad King, but also King Scab, because of how often he was cut by the Iron Throne. And as I said, it's the very first image of her we get from her own perspective. But that's not all for the comparisons with Aerys II, not by a long way. A couple of chapters later we get this when she's talking to Jaime. After the war, I mean to build a new palace beyond the river. She had dreamed of it the night before last, a magnificent white castle surrounded by woods and gardens, long leagues from the stinks and noise of King's Landing. This city is a cesspit. For half a groat, I would move the court to Lannisport and rule the realm from Casterly Rock. Aerys II also dreamed of building a white marble city on the other side of the river, and also literally took his court to Lannisport and Casterly Rock for a year to rule from there. And then there are the echoes in their lives. Both were imprisoned for a while despite their high station, Aerys at Duskendale and Cersei by the High Sparrow, and both emerged more paranoid and cruel. Both had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, one of which, Viserys and Joffrey respectively, was a cruel bully. These 3 children were with their sibling, Rhaella and Jaime respectively. They didn't love their spouse and had a string of other lovers as well. Of course, the twincest thing between Jaime and Cersei also just screams Targaryen. History is full of Targaryens falling in love with and marrying each other. It's worth noting that Jaime and Cersei never seem to find what they are doing shameful. It just seems natural to them, contrary to how pretty much everyone else in the story feels, other than Valyrians. And to add another weird twist to this, Cersei also massively lusted after Rhaegar, who, if this theory is correct, would also be her brother. Her father had tried to get the two of them engaged when they were young, and years later she still thinks about the two of them together in an idealised way. But the biggest echo of Aerys II in Cersei is undoubtedly her association with wildfire. The Mad King, we know, became obsessed with it, and Cersei is continually associated with it in the text. Her eyes are explicitly described as burning green with wildfire by Sansa, Tyrion, and Ned. When she orders the Tower of the Hand burned down by wildfire, the first time she has seen it used on a large scale, she had been indoors for the Battle of the Blackwater, we read this disturbing passage. It's quite long, but here are the highlights to give a flavour of how it makes her feel. The queen could feel the heat of those green flames. It is beautiful, she thought. Cersei thought of all the king's hands that she had known through the years. All of them are burning now, she told herself, savouring the thought. Cersei felt too alive for sleep. The wildfire was cleansing her, burning away all her rage and fear, filling her with resolve. The flames are so pretty. I want to watch them for a while. This is somebody becoming obsessed with wildfire. And if we need the point made even more clearly, we see it from Jaime's perspective too, as he remembers back to that night. The green light of the wildfire had bathed the face of the watchers, so they looked like nothing so much as rotting corpses, a pack of gleeful ghouls. But some of the corpses were prettier than others. Even in the baleful glow, Cersei had been beautiful to look upon. She'd stood with one hand on her breast, her lips parted, her green eyes shining. She is crying, Jaime had realised, but whether it was from grief or ecstasy, he could not have said. From having seen what Cersei was feeling, it is clear it was ecstasy. This is how Jaime concludes that thought. The sight had filled him with disquiet, reminding him of Aerys Targaryen and the way a burning would arouse him. Jaime, the person who probably knows Cersei best, thinks she is becoming like Aerys. And it's hard to disagree. Even in the 12 POV chapters we have for her, we can see her growing crueler, more delusional, more paranoid, blaming slights and hurts, real and imagined, on everyone but her, dreaming of revenge, obsessed with wildfire. Yes, she is becoming like the Mad King. Now, by this point, I'm sure some of you will have started to wonder, what about Jaime? If Cersei is the Mad King's daughter and Jaime is her twin, then surely he must be his son. But Jaime seems decidedly not like Aerys. In fact, he was so repulsed by the Mad King that he broke his solemn Kingsguard vow and killed him. And in the main story, Jaime's character arc seems, so far, one of self-reflection and personal growth. So how could we explain that? Well, Cersei and Jaime are, of course, non-identical twins, so perhaps it's simply that he takes more after his mother, Joanna. Not all siblings turn out the same. In fact, most don't, and not all Targaryens turn out to be obsessed with wildfire. And without wishing to overinterpret the text, there is this intriguing moment when Tywin's sister Jenna, that's Jaime's aunt, spoke some home truths to him in A Feast for Crows. Jaime, sweetling, I have known you since you were a babe at Joanna's breast. You smile like Geryon and fight like Tig, and there's some of Kevin in you, else you would not wear that cloak. But Tyrion is Tywin's son, not you. I said so once to your father's face, and he would not speak to me for half a year. Geryon, Tig and Kevin are her and Tywin's brothers, so she knows what she's talking about, but how literally should we take her assertion that Jaime isn't Tywin's son? Is it just a turn of phrase or something more? Incidentally, there's another layer here that we don't yet have enough information on, because Tywin and Jenna were once close until, in her words, she disappointed him. How? We don't know. Is it connected to this in some way? Maybe, but maybe it's something else entirely. Feel free to speculate wildly in the comments below. There is also a fan theory that, as the twins are non-identical fraternal twins, perhaps Cersei is Aerys' daughter and Jaime is Tywin's son. It's biologically possible, and the phenomenon goes by the name of heteropaternal superfecundation. Unlikely, perhaps, but not impossible. In any event, the main point here is that Jaime not being like Aerys does not invalidate the theory that Cersei is his son. And what I find most fascinating about this whole theory of Cersei being a Targaryen are the implications for the story. For all the focus on Robert's rebellion being the end of Targaryen rule in Westeros, actually, it wasn't really. Robert Baratheon's grandmother was Targaryen. She was the Mad King's aunt, no less. So he was part Targaryen, an argument the Maesters themselves put forward to defend his coronation. Depending on how you interpret the line of succession, there's an argument that, at the moment he was crowned, after the deaths of Aerys, Rhaegar and Rhaegar's children, and before Dany was born, he was actually second or third in line anyway after Viserys. Obviously, Fagon and Jon potentially muddy the waters a bit, but this was more of a bloody coup by a member of the extended family than the start of a completely new royal family. And after Robert came Joffrey and Tommen, Cersei's children. If she is Aerys's child, that makes them Aerys's grandchildren. And it would mean that Tyrion, the son Tywin despised and wished that he could disown, might be the only true heir that Tywin has. Jaime potentially was a kinslayer as well as a kingslayer when he killed the Mad King. Aerys instructed him to kill his father, Tywin, but Jaime killed Aerys instead. And if Jaime does turn out to be the Valonqar, the younger brother prophesied to kill Cersei, then he will have killed both father and daughter who were obsessed with wildfire. It would also add another layer to Joffrey's character, there now being a reason for his cruel character being so reminiscent of Viserys and Aerion Targaryen, and Tyrion's description of Joffrey as Aerys III is not actually that far off. So with all that in its favour, what could be against this theory? Well, a few things. First, although we can't conclusively prove that Aerys and Joanna weren't in the same place with the right timing for this to be true, we also don't have any evidence to suggest that they were. Joanna and Tywin were married in the year 263, and she was expelled from court soon afterwards, seldom returning. Jaime and Cersei were born in the year 266, 3 years later. And Tywin was clearly committed to Jaime and Cersei as his children. He may not have shown them much love, but he was very focused on Jaime being his heir and using Cersei to tie his family into the royal line. He never gives even a hint that they aren't his children. And although Cersei herself certainly loves wildfire and takes prophecy seriously, in over 12 chapters from her perspective, we don't get much by way of other Targaryen traits. She doesn't think overly about dragons or dragon eggs, or get dragon dreams, or show much of a resistance to fire or heat. Finally, we have to be honest that just because there are echoes of Aerys in her story, that does not necessarily mean that she must therefore be his daughter. Perhaps George R.R. Martin is just warming us up to the idea that she will look to blow up portions of King's Landing with wildfire. In this context, Aerys's actions would therefore be foreshadowing for her, rather than an indication of a blood tie between them. And it's not as if Aerys is the only historical character Cersei is reminiscent of. I've spoken a few times on my live streams on my other channel, IDG Live, about how Cersei seems to be being set up to be reminiscent of Rhaenyra in the Dance of the Dragons. Just watch her go in the Winds of Winter. In my mind, George R.R. Martin definitely gives us enough room to believe that Cersei could be the Mad King's daughter, but not enough yet to say that she definitely is. And it may well be one of those things that we never actually find out. All the people who would actually know Joanna, Aerys and Tywin are all dead, so we may be left to speculate for a while yet. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like more videos like this on the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, there's a playlist on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, the best way to do that is by clicking on the link to Patreon on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.